Good morning, everyone. How are you? My name is Ankit, and we will be taking up today's daily newspaper analysis. Today is 7th of December, and we have in our today's discussion topics from these three newspaper sources that we cover on a daily basis: The Hindu, Indian Express, as well as the PIB website. Now we'll be starting off our today with the editorial discussion which appeared in the Hindu newspaper. It is on the revival of manufacturing sector. Now, why does manufacturing sector needs revival in the first place? Ever thought about that? Let me tell you why. Now, historically, any country, if it were to get into a developed nation category, this is called as a structural transformation. Now, India historically has been a agricultural based society where close to 45% of people are involved in manufacturing, in agricultural based activities. So as to absorb the surplus labor which are there in the agricultural sector into manufacturing sector, you need to develop manufacturing sector. Understood? So that is why our country needs revival of manufacturing sector. Now, it is not that India's manufacturing sector has not grown leaps and bounds in past few decades. It has actually. But even then, the manufacturing share in country's GDP hovers around 17 to 18% of GDP. Now, this is the reason why we need to revive the manufacturing sector to bring this figure upwards of 25%. So this is the reason why it needs revival. Now, this article is written by the head of an pressure group called Confederation of Indian Industry, and it is rich with examples and facts which we will discuss today. Now, this news article is important from GS paper 3 syllabus because changes in industrial policy is mentioned in the mains examination syllabus in the part of GS 3 paper. Now, as I already told you, India's manufacturing sector has grown leaps and bounds in last few years, primarily due to a scheme called Production Linked Incentive Scheme. Now, this Production Linked Incentive Scheme has revived India's manufacturing capacity. However, this article states that despite such measures, strong reforms, especially by the state governments, are needed to fully capitalize India's potential in the manufacturing sector. See our northern neighbor, for example, that is China. It has also grown quite a large number of economy. It has become world's second largest economy. And why has it become so? Because of development of manufacturing sector. That China's manufacturing sector is not just able to meet its domestic demand, but it is exporting products all over the world, including India. Now, because of various conflicts, especially the disruption as a result of COVID pandemic, the world has become aware that dependence only just on China for manufacturing activity is not conducive for world economy. So they are exploring other options as well, which is called as China plus one strategy. Now, according to this strategy, companies are exploring other options as well, and India is in a prime position to act as a China's replacement in the manufacturing sector. But you understand, right? We need to make conditions conducive to attract foreign investments into India. And this is what today's article highlights. Now, first, this article states that country's manufacturing sector has witnessed impressive performance. And to support its argument, the article quotes Annual Survey of Industries 2022 and 23 results. Now, Annual Survey of Industries is a survey of industries, as the name highlights. It surveys formal manufacturing setup establishments, especially the establishments which employ 10 or more people, especially if it is a powered industry, and more than 20 people, especially if it is non-powered industry. So this was the reason why you need Annual Survey of Industries. Now, this survey has highlighted that India's manufacturing sector has registered a growth rate of 21.5%, whereas the gross value added of manufacturing has grown by more than 7%. Now, this is last 2 decades result. Now, especially this survey quotes the developments related to PLI sector. Now, if you recall our discussions day before yesterday, I told you PLI sector is a scheme by Government of India where 14 sectors are eligible, such as auto components, drone manufacturing companies, etc. And in this 14 sector, the government is providing incentives to companies to set up their manufacturing hubs in India. Now, this incentive is provided to the companies on incremental production. That is, after they've registered to the scheme and have become eligible, the increase in their production, only on that increase, the incentives will be provided. Now, these PLI sectors have contributed 58% to India's total manufacturing output and has witnessed output growth of 24.5%. So, you can understand the manufacturing sector as a whole has grown by 21.5 sector, and even more than that has grown the PLI eligible companies. Now, this was the survey that says that India's performance has been impressive. But today's article also highlights what measures could further be taken by governments and policy makers in order to make India a manufacturing hub across the world. Now, first suggestion in this regard has been to extend the PLI incentives. Now, currently, the PLI incentives are available only to 14 sectors and to companies which are very large. So, only large companies are eligible, that too only in 14 sectors. Now, today's article highlights that first, government needs to extend this initiatives or incentives to labor-intensive industry. Now, what are labor-intensive industries? It is simply those industries which employ a lot of labor. For example, textiles, apparels, footwear, furniture. These industries are called labor intensive industries, and we need to provide PLI incentives for such industries as well. Also, it suggests extending of PLI incentives to sunrise sector. Now, sunrise sector are those sectors whose potential will go on a further times in coming years. These are drone manufacturers, advanced computing sectors, even solar renewable energy sectors. These are sunrise sectors. So, we need to extend PLI incentives to such sectors as well in order to make India not just manufacturing hub but also a technological hub. Now, the second suggestion was reducing the import dependence on sectors. Now, although PLI scheme has increased India's manufacturing capabilities, but this manufacturing capabilities has also come at a significant cost. Now, what is that cost? It is that many industries, they depend on sourcing of raw materials from other countries they are dependent on imports. The most prime example is the mobile manufacturing industry. Now, mobile manufacturing requires you to source processors from Taiwan, screens from South Korea, as well as other important components such as printed circuits board from countries such as China. So, all of these countries originally manufacture the raw material which is assembled into India, and that is why India's manufacturing in mobile components is taking place. So, this although results into increased exports from India, but also increase to our imports. So, we need to reduce our import dependence of such sectors. But you also realize that you cannot just remove imports, you have to reduce them only to a significant aspect, so as long as your products remain competitive throughout the world. So, in case any industry would want imports, in that case the article highlights that you need to streamline India's import regime, because currently India's import regime is rather impulsive in nature, because government, due to pressure from domestic industries, what they do is they impose high import tariffs. But companies which are importing raw materials, they end up paying more tariffs, and as a result, the cost of manufacturing increases. So you need to simplify or streamline the import regime by a simplified tariff system. That is a 3-stage tariff system, which will not just make our exports more competitive, but will also keep our manufacturing costs low. So the idea is to keep the manufacturing cost low and increase the competitiveness of India's exports. Now the fourth point is that India needs to venture into green manufacturing. Why green manufacturing? Because world across there has been a demand of reduction in greenhouse gas emissions in the manufacturing process, and even countries like or European Union, that is a major trading bloc across the world, it is imposing sanctions on countries who are not manufacturing or who are not keeping their greenhouse gases emissions low. So we need to venture into green manufacturing as well. And also we need to undertake research and development in advanced manufacturing tech. Now by advanced manufacturing tech, what we mean is it gives away or it produces high quality components which are in high demand in Western and developed nations. And also advanced manufacturing techs also keeps our cost of manufacturing low by efficiently using the inputs. Also, this article highlights that currently there exists a regional imbalance in our development, because if you see from this map, 5 states, that are Maharashtra, Karnataka, Tamil Nadu, Gujarat and Uttar Pradesh, just this 5 states are responsible for as much as 56% of total manufacturing in our country, and they employ 60% of total manufacturing workforce. So on one hand, out of 28 odd states, we have 5 states who are manufacturing more than 50% of our manufacturing capabilities, whereas rest of 23 states, they are just manufacturing what? 44%. And manufacturing setup in our country is absent in the eastern part of our country. That is, these are lesser developed states and they witness low amount of manufacturing activity. So our today's article, it states that we need regional balance in development. That is, people from all across the country, they need not migrate into more developed states. Rather, the industries could be set up in their home states, which will do away with the need for urban and rural migration. Now, to undertake regional balance in development, we need the states of Indian Union to implement what are known as factor market reforms. Now, what are factor market reforms? These are reforms related to land, labor, capital, as well as infrastructure. Now, for example, if any state is able to provide industries with low cost of power and facilitates the investment in their capital, and also these states can provide these companies land free of cost or at low cost, and also supply adequate amount of skilled labor, which is essential for manufacturing activities. So by undertaking factor market reforms, many states can attract many foreign investors, which will again enable them to set up manufacturing setups in their very own state. And this also has socio-economic implications, that it will reduce migration pressures on urban areas on western parts of the country. It will improve the livelihood and local economy of the lesser developed states, and hence it will lead to social and economic inclusion of our people. Additionally, the scheme highlights that there is a need to tailor PLI incentive schemes to accommodate MSMEs. Now, why MSMEs are that important? Now, MSMEs, they are responsible for about 45% of total country's manufacturing levels, and they employ almost 6 crore people in undertaking such activities. However, under current PLI regime, only large companies are eligible and not small companies are eligible. So that is why we need to tailor PLI incentives so as to make MSMEs eligible. And by making MSMEs eligible, we'll also be upgrading their technologies, that when they interact with other companies in their competition, they will try to compete with them by bringing better technology, lower cost and a simplified system. So this is what tailoring of PLI incentive scheme for MSME means. Also, today's article highlights that we need to enhance the female workforce participation rate. Now, in the past 3 or 4 years or so, India has witnessed 10% increase in female labor force participation to say 37% of eligible female workforce. However, despite this 10% increase, India still lags behind other countries. For example, China has 60% of female labor force participation rate. So, today's article highlights that if we are able to enhance female workforce participation in our country, it will not just improve the livelihood and lives of female workers, but it will also enable India to grow by 7 to 8% more of GDP every year. So this does not make just a social case, but it is also an economic case, that you can improve our country's growth prospects by allowing or promoting female workforce participation rate. So this is what today's article was all about, that what needs to be done in order to make India fully realize its manufacturing potential. Now with this, we move to second article of the day, which appeared also in the Hindu newspaper on page 12, and it says that the Employee Provident Fund organization has won a global award, that is International Social Securities Association Good Practice Award. Now, for example, this practice award is not that much important from our UPSC perspective. But what is important is that this organization abbreviated as EPFO. Now, this news article is important from GS paper 3 syllabus. So, let us see the Employee Provident Fund organization. Now, this is one of the world's largest social security organization. And why am I saying one of the world's largest? Because it has more than 25 crore member accounts. Now, it deals with large set of clientele, primarily the served section of the society, which are under some form of formal service. Now, this body came into existence with the promulgation of the Employee Provident Fund Ordinance in the year 1951, and later on this ordinance was replaced by a statutory act called Employee Provident Funds Act of the year 1952, which is now referred to as Employee Provident Funds and Miscellaneous Provisions Act. Now, this or the ambit of this act extends to whole of India. Now, this body is managed or administered by a tripartite board, which means this board has representations from 3 different sections of society, and the board is called Central Board of Trustees, which consists representatives of government, which includes both central and state governments, representatives of employers or the companies, as well as the employees or the workforce. So these are the 3 parties of Central Board of Trustees, and this board administers a contributory provident fund scheme, which is called as EPF scheme. Now, for salaried class, certain percentage of their basic income they have to submit to a EPF account, and the same amount of contribution will also be made by the company into your account. And the eligible beneficiaries are eligible to get these benefits after they retire from the service. Now, when they get these benefits after they retire from the service, it is exempted from taxation at income source, at interest source, as well as when you withdraw the money. So it is completely exempted from any tax obligations. However, there is also an option to withdraw your PF savings before you retire. However, in that case, the eligibility from income tax exemption is not provided. And this is done so in order to make people more aware that they can withdraw their benefits after the retirement, and it will act as a sense of social security for them. This board also administers a pension scheme, which is Pension Scheme 1995, and an insurance scheme for the workforce who are engaged in organized sector called Insurance Scheme of the year 1976. Now, this body functions under the nodal control of Ministry of Labour and Employment. Understood? So, let us now solve the practice question that I have curated, and this is based on UPSC pattern. With reference to employees provident fund organization, consider the following statements. Now, EPFO is a statutory body. Is it a statutory body? Yes, it is, because it has been formed by an act of parliament called Employee Provident Fund and Miscellaneous Provisions Act. Now, this body is tasked with managing Employee Provident Fund scheme, as I have already highlighted. So, this is correct statement. The second statement, the EPFO administers a pension scheme under which employees are entitled to a guaranteed pension post retirement, which is again correct. Now, contributions to the EPF by both employer and employees are tax exempt at all stages. Now, pay close attention to what I am about to say. Now, there are frequent statements in UPSC prelims examination which give a definite or a universal statement, that very, or, all. So, these statements are example of absolute statements, and in many cases they are incorrect. But rather than marking them based on your hunch, you need to know the idea behind those statements. Now, what if I told you in this previous slide that if you are withdrawing your PF savings after your retirement, then it is completely exempted from the tax liability. But this is not the case when you withdraw it before your retirement. So, from that logic, it is not exempted from tax at all stages, that it is only exempted from tax in case you withdraw after retirement and not when you withdraw before retirement. So, the third statement here is incorrect. So, which of the statements given above is or are correct? The correct answer is option A, as 1 and 2 are correct and third is not. Now, another article, this one is from Indian Express, page 12, and this talks about Farmers ID. Now, Farmers ID have been issued to farmers across the country, and the state of Gujarat has become the first state to hit the mark of 25% of Farmers ID. Now, this is an initiative by the government. Similarly, like you and I have Aadhaar card, farmers will be provided a farmer ID called Apna Pehchan Patra. So, let us understand what is this Farmers ID. It is also known as Kisan Pehchan Patra. It is an Aadhaar linked union digital identity where Kisans will have to seed their farmers ID with their Aadhaar number. Now, this is done in order to avoid duplication of farmers ID. Now, these IDs, they are created and maintained by the state and union governments. Pay close attention to this. And this ID will be linked to various farmer related data. What are farmer related data? Like what kind of land the farmer is cultivating their crops in? Is it their own land or they are renting it from another source? Also, what is their livestock ownership? Livestock ownership determines how farmers are eligible to undertake an income security. What if their crops failed? So, in that case, they can rely on livestock. Also, the ideas of what crops they sow, and based on this idea, the government will provide them with the benefits. And there are many benefits such as subsidy benefits, knowledge support, which is provided to farmers through CSC centers and Krishi Vigyan Kendras. Now, this database, which the government will have after the creation of Farmers ID, will be known as a Farmers Registry. And this farmers registry is a part of a larger scheme called AgriStack. Now, AgriStack is very similar to what you and I know as UPI. UPI enables us to transfer money from one bank account into another, and it is called a digital public infrastructure. That is an infrastructure created by the government over the digital era, and this infrastructure enables us to use it and send money across. Similarly, government is also creating a digital public infrastructure called AgriStack for agricultural sector, which has three components. That is, it will have a farmers registry, geo-referenced village maps, as well as a crop zone registry. So, farmers are taken care of here, land is taken care of here, and crops are taken care of through the use of digital public infrastructure called AgriStack. Now, this enables effective scheme delivery to farmers. It enables the government to know more about farmers, what are their socio-economic status, and it also helps government assess what kind of crops are grown in the country, and does government need to take any step in order to improve the country's food security obligations. Now, there are key targets which can be included, but before that, let us know more about AgriStack. It consists of farm registry where farmers will be given a digital ID, geo-reference village maps where farmers ID it will be linked to state government's land records, and demographic details, family details, etc. And a crop zone registry where what are the crops will be recorded based on mobile based surveys. Now the government has set a target of issuing 11 crore identities over next 3 years in a step-by-step manner, and it will also launch a digital crop survey nationwide within 2 years, which will cover as many as 400 districts by 2024-25, that is this financial year, and all districts by the next financial year. Now, based on this information, let us solve this practice question. With reference to farmer ID, consider the following statement. It is an Aadhaar linked unique digital ID created and maintained by union government. Is it a correct statement? No. Why? Because it is created and maintained by not union but state governments. Now the second statement, government aims to create a digital identity for 11 crore farmers by the end of financial year 2026-27, which you can see from here is a correct statement. So, as only second statement here is correct, that's why option B is the right answer to this practice question. Now, another article in the Indian Express, and this article highlights that yesterday RBI did not change the policy rate, which is also known as repo rate. Now, repo rate is the rate based on which the banks borrow funds from RBI on a short-term basis, and in exchange of borrowing these funds, bank provides RBI with government securities. So this government security RBI holds as a collateral, and after the banks return their money, they can take away their government securities which have been kept with the RBI as collateral. Now the implication of this repo rate is that if you reduce the repo rate, banks can borrow money from RBI at a cheaper rate. And when banks can borrow money at a cheaper rate, obviously they'll be extending loans at a cheaper rates too, like to people like you and I. So this is the reason why RBI increases or decreases repo rate based on money supply. Now, if government reduces repo rate, that means it will or it wants to increase the levels of money supply in the economy. But there is a challenge in increasing money supply, that if you increase money supply too much, it can lead to increased level of inflation in the country. Now, this policy measures taken by RBI to increase or decrease money supply is important from GS paper 3 syllabus. Now, RBI has many obligations towards Indian society, Indian government. but it has some special responsibilities, and this is called as a statutory responsibility. Now, RBI Act of the year 1934, it was amended in the year 2015, and the RBI was given a mandate. That is, it has to keep the inflation rate at a band of +4 ±2%, which means the inflation levels in the country has to be kept between 2% and 6% of what? Of consumer price index. And this is the primary responsibility of RBI. But RBI also keeps into account lower inflation rate while promoting steady economic growth. So these are twofold objectives. However, the first objective is to control the levels of inflation between 2 to 6% of the economy. Now, the body which decides on whether to keep the repo rate changed or unchanged is called as a Monetary Policy Committee, or MPC. Now, it is a committee which comes under RBI, and it consists of 6 members, which is headed by RBI governor, and it also consists of a deputy governor of RBI, who is in charge of monetary policy, a member of RBI board nominated by the governor, and 3 members who are nominated by the central government. Now, these 6 people decide on whether RBI should increase or decrease the money supply. Now, in case there is a tie of vote, the casting vote is given to the head of Monetary Policy Committee, that is RBI governor, and they decide by majority what to do and what not to do. Now, yesterday's monetary policy decision by 4-2 majority decided that they need to keep the repo rate unchanged for the 11th consecutive time. Now, why is RBI not reducing the repo rate? Now, RBI is not reducing the repo rate because currently the inflation target is not achieved as per the RBI. Now, how does RBI achieves this inflation target? There are tools at RBI's disposal which are classified as quantitative tools and qualitative tools. Now, quantitative tools are those tools where RBI can change money supply through many policy decisions, such as reducing or increasing repo rate, cash reserve ratio, as well as statutory liquidity ratio. Now, whenever you reduce repo rate or CLR or SLR requirements, it releases funds into economy, which increases money supply. Now, yesterday, although RBI did not change the repo rate, they reduced the CRR from 4.5% to 4%, which you can understand will unlock extra funds for bank to lend more. Now, I have covered CRR in discussions on 5th of December, and you can watch this slide or refer to the video of 5th December for more clarity what CRR cut results into and what is the impact of CRR cut. Now, let us discuss what are qualitative tools. Now, these are kind of signals that the RBI gives to the banks that they need to lend more in what direction and how to lend more, but these are not obligations on the banks. Rather, quantitative tools are more obligatory, whereas qualitative tools are rather symbolic in nature. Now, why has RBI not reduced the repo rate? And it is because currently India is witnessing persisting retail inflation. Retail inflation means inflation of consumer price index. Now, almost 45 to 46% of consumer price index consists of food and fuel items, and India is witnessing food inflation due to increase in prices of vegetables and edible oils. That is why, as RBI is not comfortable with the inflation target, that it has not been under control, that is why they have not reduced the repo rate. Also, earlier, before President Trump got elected into US, it was expected that the US central bank, called as US Federal Reserve, will keep on reducing its interest rate. However, since Trump has returned to power, he has said that he'll impose tariffs on imports from other countries, including China and India. Now, if Trump goes ahead by imposing tariffs, it will result into increased inflation in the American economy. So, the American bank will not go on about its planned rate cuts which it had planned originally. Now, increased inflation levels or increased rates in American economy means that India cannot decrease its interest rate, because in that case, if India decreases its interest rate, money will flow from India to US because investors are getting better return there. So, India wants to coordinate its rate cut with that of US Federal Bank, and US Federal Bank has rather decided to go slow on rate cuts. So, these are the reasons why RBI has not made any rate cut in this policy meeting. But RBI governor yesterday in his press conference also gave the future outlook of India economy. That is, due to good amount of sowing in Rabi season, India will witness healthy agricultural outputs in this financial year, and because of this, there will be reduction in retail inflation, primarily inflation related to food and vegetable items. Also, the recent important development that India witnessed just 5.4% growth in the last quarter of this financial year. The RBI governor said that this economic slowdown is transitory in nature, and this was because of many reasons. That the industry sector, primarily the mining sector, it was affected due to increased rainfall in this monsoon season. And as the conditions now have become conducive, it will lead to economic recovery, and hence this slowdown is rather transitory in nature. Okay. So this was our today's discussion, and let us now solve the practice question with reference to Monetary Policy Committee. Consider the following statements. Now, the MPC determines the policy rate required to achieve the growth target. Is RBI tracking any growth target? No, because RBI rather wants to track an inflation target, which is 4 plus minus 2% of consumer price index. So this is what RBI is trying to capture. So first statement here is incorrect. Now MPC, it consists of 6 members, 3 of which are appointed by the central government. I've already highlighted this is a correct statement because MPC has one who is RBI governor, who acts as the head of this monetary policy committee, plus 2 members from RBI, which is one deputy governor and one member appointed by the governor, as well as 3 members who are appointed by the union government. So the second statement here is a correct statement. Now the third statement, MPC is required to meet at least once in 2 months. Now I've taken this statement because in practice, the RBI Monetary Policy Committee meets every 2 months, but this is by convention. Rather, in law, it is required that RBI should meet or monetary policy should meet at least 4 times in a year. However, RBI can meet any time if it feels so in order to change or alter the policy rates. So, second statement here is incorrect. If it were to say that RBI is required to meet at least 4 times in a year, then it would have been correct. So as only second statement here is correct, option A is the right answer because the question asks us to identify how many statements are incorrect. So the correct statement here is option B because first and third statement are incorrect. Okay. Now we move to another article again from the editorial section of Indian Express, and this article has been written by the country's health minister, Mr. J.P. Nadda. And in this article, he is highlighting that the government is launching a 100-day campaign to shore up a battle against a disease called tuberculosis. Now this news article is important from GS paper 3 syllabus because this syllabus deals with social sector and emphasizes on health sector. So we'll be taking up this article. Now the disease called tuberculosis, it is a bacterial disease. Now this bacterial disease happens because of a bacteria called Mycobacterium tuberculosis, and it is a disease which affects a person's lungs. Now this inhibits our breathing capabilities, and that is why the symptoms of TB are most visible by coughing and sneezing of an individual who is down with TB. Now this TB disease has impacted India's society significantly, because many people, first of all, they do not know that they are suffering from TB, and that is why they are unable or not willing to get treated, and that is why this disease burden has been persisting for some time. Now any person who has been suffering from TB will not be able to explore its full economic potential, that they'll not be able to study, they'll not be able to go to work, and this affects not just them but their entire families. And also there is a huge cost of expenditure which people incur on getting themselves treated with TB. So in that regards, the government has been on a mission mode for past few years to eradicate and eliminate TB altogether from India's society. And in this regard, today's article highlights that from pioneering research of advanced diagnostic and treatments and introduction of a universal social support provisions, India is at the forefront of global TB response. Now, first let us understand what are the measures taken by the government to control TB. First is a support scheme which is called Nikshay Poshan Yojana, where earlier it was 500 rupees that was given. Now it has been doubled to rupees 1000, and this money sent directly into the bank accounts of 1.16 crore beneficiaries, and this money is intended to give them nutrition which is necessary to fight TB. Also, the government is looking to enhance the levels of community mobilization, that not just people who are suffering from TB should be aware, but the entire society should be aware. And based on this awareness, mass movement is taking place to increase awareness and provide nutritional, vocational, as well as psychological support to TB patients. Now, due to this mass movement, as many as 1.7 lakh Nikshay Mitras will provide 21 lakh food baskets to patients across the country. So, you understand, first of all, government is sending them money, and also government is enhancing the mobilization of the community to provide support to TB patients by providing them with food baskets. Also, India, in order to treat the TB patients, have introduced a newer drugs such as bedaquiline as well as delamanid, which will improve the treatment success rates in India. Now, there are different types of regime or the treatment regime which the people can take. And for people who want to get treated quickly, the government has introduced a new shorter regime called BPA-LM, which is more effective than the existing regime. Now, the existing regime were of two types. First one was a shorter treatment which took 9 to 11 months, and the another one was a longer 19 to 20 month treatment regime. So, the government has introduced a newer regime which aims to treat or complete the treatment in just 6 months. So, saving this precious time of the patient. Also, I already highlighted that the more problem with TB is the detection of TB. So, their government has set up molecular tests which are a more efficient and accurate diagnostic tool, and this is intended, and the capacity of these tests have increased from few hundred in 2014-15, and now today every district in our country has as much as 8,300 molecular diagnostic machines. So, all districts have advanced level of test, and people who think they have TB, they can go to these centers and get them checked. Now, this measure is aimed to enhance the detection level in the country, because only when you can detect TB, then only you'll treat them, right? So, this is what the government has done. Now, has this steps resulted into success? The answer is yes, because according to WHO's global TB report, it noted that the India has witnessed 17.7% decline in TB incidences between 2015 and 2023. Now, this is double the rate, that is 2x more than the world has level 2 achieved. Also, India diagnosed as many as 25.1 lakh patient, making a significant rise in the treatment coverage, which was earlier just 59% of the people who were diagnosed with TB were treated, and now it has increased to 85%. That is, as many as 85% of the people who are detecting TB, they are getting treatment by the government. Also, TB related deaths in our country has declined by almost 1/5 times, from 28 per lakh of population to just 22 per lakh population. Now, this highlights that the government has able to control TB to somewhat good extent. But there's somewhat more ground that needs to be covered, and for that the government has launched a 100-day campaign. Now, this 100-day campaign is a part of a broader framework called National TB Elimination Program, which looks to reduce the incidences of TB. In case you have TB, it looks to enhance the diagnostic and treatment capabilities, and not just treat the patient but also address their socio-economic impact of the disease. Because any person who is suffering from TB naturally will not be able to work, and that is why their income levels will be suffered. And for that, the government, as I have already highlighted here, is providing a direct benefit transfer of rupees 1000 to the patients. Now, the major focus of this 10-day TB elimination program, it will be to strengthen the diagnostic and treatment services, particularly among the most vulnerable groups. Now, who are these most vulnerable groups? They are people who are living in remote and underserved areas. They are from marginalized communities, especially the tribals and scheduled caste, and individuals who have other diseases as well, such as diabetes, HIV, or they are suffering from malnutrition. Because such existing disease makes people weak and makes them more susceptible to have grievances or grieve consequences with relation to TB. Also, the campaign will target high burden areas with specialized targeted strategies to improve access to advanced diagnostic and reduce the delay in treatment initiation. Because earlier you initiate the treatment, the earlier is when you reduce the number of deaths related to TB. So, this was the article related to TB, and with this we move to another article in the op-ed section of Indian Express, which is written by a former CEO of Niti Aayog, Mr. Parameswaran Iyer. Now, this portal highlights the success of a Pragati platform, which is a platform to monitor the infrastructure projects in our country. Now, infrastructure growth in our country has been phenomenal in the recent years. It has led to creation of airports, better trains, better roads, more efficient power networks. And this is all due to the Pragati platform. What is this Pragati platform? We will look into in this discussion. Now, this Pragati platform is an abbreviation for proactive governance and timely implementation. It is a multi-purpose and multi-portal platform which is aimed to address common man grievances and simultaneously monitor and review important infrastructural projects. Now, just the union government projects are monitored? No, but rather governments both at central and state level, and their projects are monitored by this platform, which is monitored by the PM himself. Now, this platform bundles three latest technologies, that is digital data management, video conferencing for better interaction, as well as geospatial technology to assess the impact on ground. Now, what are the features of this platform? It has a three-tiered scheme, that is PMO at the apex level, union government secretaries at the second level, and chief secretaries of respective states at the third level. All these three people or sections of groups, they sit together and they monitor individual infrastructural projects. And the purpose of this monitoring is to expedite the execution, because earlier or by earliest you can construct any infrastructure project, the benefits of it will be available to people at the earliest possible time. Also, the feature of this platform is that PM has monthly video conferences, which is held on 4th Wednesday of each month, called as Pragati Day, to discuss the flagged issue. Now, how does PM identifies which project is facing from issues? And he does so when public highlights such grievances to the PMO. And ongoing programs and pending projects, they are uploaded 7 days prior to Pragati Day, which is efficiently monitored by the PMO and presented in front of Prime Minister himself. Now, in case Prime Minister flags any infrastructure project, it has to be issued within 3 days of the meeting, and then the rectification measures will be taking place. Now the PMO reviews the data again after rectification, and only after that it has been sanctioned. Now the system, it integrates data from the grievance cell of Union Government, that is CPGRAMS, Project Monitoring Group, as well as the Ministry of Statistics and Program Implementation. Now the design of this platform is such that whenever the PM reviews the issue, the same issue will be highlighted on the screen, and the latest update and visuals using the video conferencing and geospatial technology will be available in front of PM's eyes. So the accountability of secretaries of union government and state government in this case is with the Prime Minister directly. And this prompts quick resolution of any grievances. Now, what are the benefits of Pragati? Why is government going so hard on Pragati platform? It is because it wants to deliver good governance. And how is government delivering good governance? First of all, it is ensuring transparency and accountability. That in any case some project is delayed, it has been highlighted adequately, and responsible people are held accountable to it. Further, it aims to bring all stakeholders, be it PMO, be it the union government and its respective ministries, or the chief secretary of the state governments on one platform. And the aim is not to highlight their shortcomings, rather resolving the issues and issue clearances to the hold up projects. Also, this leads to efficient and responsive governance, and it also expedites long pending projects. For example, there was this Bogibeel bridge in Assam which was pending for long, and it was constructed after the intervention made by PM using the Pragati platform. Now there are many keywords also which are mentioned in the article and can be asked by UPSC in one form or the other. First is a Swagat platform, which was a digital platform that was started when Prime Minister Modi was the Chief Minister of the state of Gujarat, and it was done to address people's grievances. Another platform or portal is called Parivesh, which is a platform that provides streamlined environmental clearances to companies who apply for environmental clearances for their infrastructural projects. Now, before starting this portal, the approval time could have stretched to 600 days. However, it has been just 70 to 75 days in current times. Now, why is Pragati platform so important? Because India wants to increase its investment in infrastructure, because only after you create necessary infrastructure, you will be able to get higher economic growth in the country, right? That is why RBI highlights for every 1 rupee that you invest in infrastructure, the return will be 2.5 to 3.5 times. So this is the benefits related to Pragati platform. Now let us solve the practice question. With reference to Pragati platform, consider the following statements. It is a unique platform that integrates 3 technologies: digital data management, video conferencing and geospatial technology. A correct statement. It is designed to cooperation only among the ministries and departments of union government. Incorrect. It also takes into account both union as well as state government. So second statement here is incorrect. The third statement, the platform is exclusively managed by NITI Aayog, which provides regular updates to prime ministers on its project progress. Again incorrect. It is managed by the Prime Minister's office and not NITI Aayog. So only first statement here is correct. That is why option C is the right answer. Sorry, I've conducted an error. Option will be C. Only one statement is correct. So, we move to last article of the day, which appeared in the Press Information Bureau, called Beneficiaries under Pradhan Mantri Kisan Man Dhan Yojana. Now, this article highlights that as many as 24.66 lakh of farmers have been registered for this scheme, which is a central sector scheme. Central sector scheme means 100% of the contribution to this scheme is made by the union government with no contributions from state government. Now, this scheme intends to create a social security net for small and marginal farmers during their old age. Now, is only small and marginal farmers eligible? The answer is no. All farmers are eligible, but this is focusing more on small and marginal farmers, which consist of almost 85% of total farmers in our country. Now, it is a voluntary and contributory pension scheme, and the pension will be available to farmers after they attain the age of 60 years. The farmers who are eligible are between 18 to 14 years, and they are to get minimum monthly pension of rupees 3,000 after they attain 60 years. Now, the contribution to this scheme is made by both government as well as farmers themselves. That is, farmers, they have to pay between 55 to 200 rupees every month, and government also makes a matching contribution to their pension account. And this scheme will be managed by the Life Insurance Corporation of India Limited, who acts as a pension fund manager. So, now let us solve the last practice question with reference to Pradhan Mantri Kisan Man Dhan Yojana. Consider the following statement. It is a voluntary contributory pension scheme aimed at providing monthly pension to farmers after the attainment of 60 years of age. Correct. The second statement, the scheme is exclusively available to small and marginal farmers who own cultivatable land up to 2 hectares. Incorrect. It is available to all farmers. The third statement, the contribution made by farmers to the schemes are matched with an equal contribution from the central government. It is a correct statement because it is a contributory scheme where farmers have to pay between 55 to 200 rupees every month, and the same amount of money that the farmers pay will be paid by the government. And this money forms as a corpus of the fund which will be utilized to pay your pensions after the farmers attain 60 years of age. So, as first and third statement here is correct, so option B is the right answer to this practice question. Now, with this, I conclude our today's session, and the notes for this session will be available on this particular Telegram channel. So, do subscribe to it and stay tuned to us, as we will be again coming at 10 a.m. sharp on Monday with new set of daily newspaper analysis. So, until then, I wish you a very happy weekend.